This episode contains details related to a real missing person case. Some information may be unsettling. Listener discretion is advised.
On a quiet summer afternoon, a man walked away from his home carrying only a few familiar items. No phone, no plan beyond something he'd done countless times before. He told people where he was going. He was seen, and then he vanished. What makes this case unsettling isn't what we don't know, it's what we do know. The timeline is tight, the distance is short, the environment is familiar, and yet there's a complete absence of answers. Tonight, we're not here to speculate. We're here to examine behavior, terrain, time, and patterns. To ask how someone can disappear in plain sight, and what might still be hiding in the details everyone overlooked. Because sometimes, the truth isn't buried miles away. Sometimes, it's right where no one thought to look. Right now, we are traveling to the Walnut Cove, North Carolina area, looking for a missing person whose name is Scotty Manuel. Scotty disappeared back on June 23rd, 2022, where on the day that he disappeared, it was believed that he was going to go fishing. He just never returned.
Friends and family are hoping this holiday weekend will bring them a little bit of good news after their missing loved one has been gone now for more than a week. Maria DeBone has the details from Germantown.
Last Thursday, Scotty left his parents' home here in Germantown and traveled through the woods to get to his grandparents' house, which he normally does. And that's where he was last seen. His father said he just wants him home.
He's never gone this long without, in the last few years, without talking at least to his mom. Never over a day.
Donnie Manuel said it's unlike his son just to wander off. He said he has a cognitive impairment that requires medication, and days prior to his disappearance, he was sleep deprived, which could have caused him to be disoriented.
Based on some new intelligence that's been gathered throughout our process, we've identified a primary search area that we really want to take a look at. It may require us to do some underwater searching, and we also want to get some terrain analysis using both drone and LiDAR capability. The LiDAR aspect is really important because that allows us to see what the terrain looks like underneath the tree canopy, which in Scotty's missing person case is really important, because if we're saying that Scotty encountered a scenario where he went into the woods, had some type of accident and couldn't get out, the terrain would have directly influenced his navigation. So it's important that we understand it. Hello, everyone. My name is Mark, and I'm with the Find Me Project. Our mission is simple: to serve as a point of light when answers are hard to find and families are facing their darkest hours. As you listen to this episode, know that if you have any information that could help, you can contact us safely and privately. And for privacy and protection, certain names, details, and voices have been changed or altered in this episode.
A mission with purpose: to find the missing using the power of social networking and cutting-edge technology. We're military veterans, technologists, scuba divers, and relentless seekers. From deep forests to sunken vehicles, from silence to signal, every clue matters. If you've ever felt the call to stand for something greater, this is your moment. This is the Find Me Project.
So how did we get here? That's the question that keeps coming up. In 2025, this case crossed our desk for the first time. A referral, a name, a disappearance that on paper looked simple. But the deeper we went, the more it resisted explanation. We accepted the case with one clear purpose: to bring resources to an investigation that never had them. Technology that hadn't been available, analysis that hadn't been done, and a chance, finally, at answers. Archie breaks it down well for us.
We began by feeding the earliest known details into our advanced AI system, Global Search. That system scans across IoT data, environmental inputs, historical patterns. And what came back was something we couldn't ignore. Using forensic and behavioural profiling, we built a pattern of life. We reconstructed movement. We slowed the day down, minute by minute. And what emerged was a pace of travel at or below 1 mile per hour. That's not normal, but it is consistent with physical limitation. That single data point changes everything.
At that speed, distance collapses. The world shrinks. From the last known location, the highest probability area isn't miles away. It's close. Half a mile, maybe 1 mile at most. Beyond that, the odds drop sharply. Then we layered terrain, weather, heat, moon visibility, darkness. We asked a simple question. Where would someone go and where would they stop under these conditions? That's when the model pointed north to a known fishing location, familiar, quiet, isolated. And here's the part that matters most. More than 3.5 years later, nothing has surfaced. No belongings, no trace, no accidental discovery, which tells us something important. If he stayed local, if he stayed on foot, the absence of evidence doesn't mean absence of location. It suggests isolation. Areas rarely traveled, places people don't stumble into. So now the question isn't just where did he go, it's what happens to the human body over time in wilderness like this, and how does that affect what can still be found? That's where this investigation leads next. Our profiler summed it up perfectly.
Yeah. When you look at Scotty's case, the first thing I always tell people is this. His pattern of life is actually very consistent, and that matters more than people realize. Scotty wasn't someone who planned far ahead. He lived in routines, familiar places, familiar behaviors. Fishing was a big part of that. It wasn't recreational in the sense that you or I might plan a trip. It was almost regulatory for him. Something grounding, something he returned to again and again. Now, from a profiling standpoint, Scotty had a few vulnerabilities that all converged right around the time he disappeared. He had a physical impairment, which immediately limits how far and how fast he can travel. He also had a cognitive impairment that affected decision-making, especially under stress. Add in sleep deprivation, summer heat, and the fact that he didn't bring a phone, food, or water. And you're looking at someone who was functioning, but just barely within a safe margin. What's important is this. Nothing about his behavior that day suggests panic or intent to disappear. He told people where he was going. He grabbed the same gear he always did. That tells us he believed he was coming back. That's critical.
So let's talk about where we are today. The amount of information we've been able to gather so far is significant. It's changed how we understand this case, and it's helped us narrow what still needs to be done. What you're looking at here is our map overlay. It shows a broad travel and search radius extending out to about 2.5 miles. But inside that larger circle are two smaller red rings, the 0.5 mile and 1 mile markers, centered on Scotty's last known location. Let me zoom in here a little bit so everybody can see those two red rings a little better. Those circles matter. Based on behavioral profiling, movement analysis, and environmental factors, we estimate Scotty's pace of travel that day was at or under 1 mile per hour. That's slow. And when you factor in physical impairment, heat, terrain, and time of day, it tells us something important. If Scotty stayed on foot and stayed local, his most likely movement would not exceed a mile. Profilers also believe Scotty understood the basic trade-off he was making that afternoon. Leaving the house at 4 o'clock meant daylight was limited. He would need enough time to walk to a fishing location, fish, and then get back before darkness. And that night, moon visibility was almost non-existent, something we believe he would have subconsciously accounted for. Now, on the map, the red house icon marks where Scotty was living. The bullseye marks the area where a witness saw him roughly 20 minutes after he left on foot, and the purple flag indicates his grandparents' residence, a known familiar waypoint. Using AI and advanced analysis, we then identified several bodies of water within this radius, what we refer to as hydro anomaly zones, or HAZ areas. These are locations where water, terrain, and behavior intersect. Here's why that matters. If Scotty stayed in the area, went into the woods to fish, and had an accident he couldn't recover from, then more than 3.5 years later, the absence of evidence suggests isolation. Areas not regularly traveled, places people don't stumble into. We also have to stay grounded in behavior. If Scotty was going to fish, he would likely choose a place where fish are known to be. That led us north, just below the R.J. Reynolds facility. Behind it runs a stretch of river that matches everything we'd expect to see. Locals told us it's a known fishing spot for catfish. Fishermen come here regularly. On paper, it made sense.
Now let's hold up here for just a moment. We're going to share some of the audio from when our teams went out into the area to search for Scotty. This is audio that comes from video recordings, so the quality will be different than how it sounds in studio. Let's give it a listen.
All right, so right now we're focused on the water. It's actually pretty shallow here right now. I want to actually show you this as we continue to move down. Try to overlay this in the video as best as possible. But there is a deep pocket right here to the side that we actually want to take a look at. And I'm going to bring that into view. I'm going to actually change the color tone so it looks a little bit different. If there is any type of anomaly down here, we're going to be able to pick it up a little bit better. Let me try to get into the shadow here so you can see this as we're viewing it in real time. I think it'll be good if we try to overlay this on any type of video content that we push out there, but we're going to continue to do this as we push down the river, and we'll be sure to record anything if we see it. We were able to clear a portion of that river marked in green on the map. It's this area here that I'm going to kind of hover around. If you're watching any of our short videos that we're going to try to put out in the near future, then you'll actually see this area, but it's right here in green. So that's the good news. The challenge that we faced was accessibility. All right, so there's pros and cons with everything that we do. We actually just hit a little bit of a roadblock where we can't go down the river anymore on foot. In order to continue to search the area, we'd actually have to get in the water, which right now it's maintaining a depth anywhere between ankle to waist high in those deep spots. So because the water is really cold and it's challenging, if not impossible almost, to get our sonar and dive boat back here, we're not going to get in the water today. We are going to head back to the vehicles, regroup, and figure out what the best next step is or will be as we move forward. So from the side of the river we were on, we couldn't continue upstream on foot. Or it actually wasn't upstream, it was actually downstream on foot. And we weren't able to find a safe, clean way to get our inflatable sonar or dive boat back into the primary search zone. That's significant because the area directly behind the facility, deeper in the woods, remains unsearched. And based on river current, if Scotty entered the water, there's a high probability he would have been carried downstream. Locals have told us that this river floods, or when it floods, it can move debris. It creates traps off the main channel. Those are exactly the kinds of areas that need to be searched. So this is a call to action to anyone familiar with this area, especially around Brookhaven Road. Again, I want to just take a moment here to kind of zoom in a little bit on this, but Brookhaven Road here on the map is located right here. I'm circling it. You can see to the left, this was our primary search area. Right up here to the left is where we cleared it, which is green. And we have the primary located directly behind RJ Reynolds. And we also have a secondary search area to the right, which, we necessarily don't believe that it's valuable because of where it's located and next to houses, but it's something that we need to at least be considerate of. Now, if you fished here, walked back in this area, or know how access points work to get in, we need to hear from you. There are also 2 smaller ponds located behind Scotty's residence. So I want to zoom out and actually take us over to that location right now. These are the 2 smaller ponds that I'm talking about. According to locals, these are possible fishing locations, not just the water, but the path that leads to and from them. So this area basically in between Scotty's parents' house and the ponds. We've attempted to contact the property owners for permission to search, including being able to use sonar, but we have not been able to reach them yet. And if you're listening to this and you have information that can help about access, about movement, about anything you've seen so far, again, please reach out to us. There are other potential water locations, but outside of these core areas, probability drops sharply. So I'm going to kind of zoom out a little bit so you can see some of these additional red search areas, or HAZs, that are within the area. They do fall outside of Scotty's likely route of travel and outside known fishing behavior. One thing that stood out to us during the river search is that we were there in winter. Scotty went missing in June, when vegetation would have been at its peak. What's difficult to access now would have been very hard back then. And when we ran LiDAR scans and predictive modeling with Scotty's physical limitations in mind, there are very few clean routes he could have realistically taken. We also need to acknowledge information shared with us by locals and uncovered by our team that Scotty may have been struggling with substance use at the time. Now, we don't judge that, and we don't investigate crimes, but from a profiling standpoint, it's relevant. It helps us understand vulnerability. It helps us model the risk. At the end of the day, our focus remains the same, that Scotty stayed in the area, that he was on foot, that he intended to go fishing, and that something happened in the time between when he was last seen and when he vanished. A lot can happen in that space. If you know something, even if you're unsure it matters, send it to us. You can remain 100% anonymous by visiting thefindmeproject.com and using the Submit a Tip feature. Because this isn't about blame. It's not about judgment. It's about answers. And we're not done looking.